Muslim friends?
Yeah, I do.
What do they say when you say that?
They say, I'm glad you said that.
Really?
Yeah, because there are Muslims here in America. That's why they came to America, to get away from that stupid shit.
Okay, so you really think that half the...
Well, read
Yeah.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali in Newsweek last week.
I read that, yeah.
Yeah, that's what she says.
Yeah, she said that.
And she, I think, knows better than you or I do. But yes, I mean, I know this anecdotally from the people I talked to when I was making the movie Religulous. I mean, we talked to a Muslim rapper in London, English guy, but a Muslim, and he was very upset about his rights of free speech being abridged because he had a rap song that was sort of like, had lyrics about blowing shit up, which, you know, the authorities thought was a little too incendiary. But at the same time, he would not, as much as I tried to say, get him to say that it is wrong to kill someone for insulting the prophet. No. Somehow his mind walled that off. It's an amazing cognitive dissonance that you could be, on the one hand, protesting that they will not allow you your free speech to make a rap song about blowing shit up. On the other side say, well, I'm sorry, you know what? If they insult the prophet, he's got what's coming. That's free speech that goes too far.
What do you think of the prophet?
I mean, like any other religious figure who's, you know, 2,000 years ago was Jesus and 1,400 years ago. Who knows? Who knows if they even lived? I don't think Jesus lived. More and more, the more I read about it, the more I think I'm not sure there ever was even a historical Jesus. Because first of all,
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John were all...
Well, first of all, those
after his time, yeah.
Yes, from 40 to 70 years after Jesus died. So Jesus dies in 33 A.D. The first gospel is 70 A.D. Paul is the one in the middle. Paul wrote in the 50s. But when Paul wrote about Jesus, he didn't know anything about Jesus. The only thing he knew about Jesus was that he died and was resurrected. He didn't know anything about his ministry. He didn't know about the trip to Jerusalem. He didn't know about his family, nothing. So how come Jesus dies in 30, and then for 40 years everybody forgot? No one knew anything about Jesus, and in 70, somehow they remembered again what happened with this guy, Jesus Christ. I mean, the Gospels were not intended to be history. They were intended to convince people to join a religion. And they used the biography of many other gods that had preceded Jesus.
Bill Maher's our guest, the host of Real Time. Back with more after this. We're back with Bill Maher, the host of Real Time with Bill Maher on HBO. About the media and the coverage, you have your thoughts on the birther issue. You criticize the Tom Brokaw for helping keep the birther myth alive. You wrote on your blog it was a failure of people like Tom Brokaw to dismiss it as racism. You think Donald Trump is a racist?
Well, I mean, it depends on how you term racist. I mean, it's funny how racism has evolved in America. I mean, 150 years ago, a racist was a guy who said, yes, I'm going to be keeping my slaves. 100 years ago, racism was Jim Crow. Somebody who believes that blacks perhaps shouldn't be allowed to vote, but maybe they are not for going all the way back to slavery. Now, I think, to me, where racism is today, it's denying that racism exists. That, to me, is very racist. You know, if you ask the people on Planet Teabag, what's the problem racially in America? It's probably reverse racism, Larry. That's where the problem is. White people who cannot get a break because of all these affirmative action laws. They really believe that. So is Donald Trump a racist? You know, not an overt one, as he has said many times. The black people love me. Or the blacks. Remember he made that comment? The blacks love me. And by the way, they love being called the blacks also. So he's one of those racists who doesn't know he's a racist. But yes, he is.
So the whole birther issue to you was inflamed by the media.
Well, you know, I remember when... well, no, I don't think I said that. I think I said what the media did with it was, as usual...
Ran with it.
Well, ran with it, but also never understood it. I remember in the 2008 election, during the election, they did something on, I think it was the state of Pennsylvania, where it was reported that 12% of the people in Pennsylvania told a pollster to his face, they were, quote, not ready for a black president. and the media treats this neutrally. Not ready. Did you find any racism there? Oh, no, Brian, just people who were not ready. Nothing racist here. It's a completely emotional issue. They're locked in their trailer. They took a Midol, and they may be ready tomorrow to have stomach the sight of a black man getting on Air Force One. But right now, they're just not ready. I mean, this is ridiculous. Not ready is racist. That's what it should mean and does mean. And I remember when I first saw in 2008 the birther issue come up on blogs and so forth, I said, wow, that is some really racist shit going on there. Fringe stuff. Well, somehow that fringe stuff got to be believed by at least half of the rank and file of the Republican Party. At least half of them will say they are absolutely sure he's not American, or certainly not sure that he is. Can't say for sure, you know. He feels foreign. They know that, feels foreign.
What do you feel about all this? Like this, we can't get together on anything. I remember, I used to be able to name everybody in the United States Senate. And I remember guys like Dirksen and others who would come together. You could call them in, talk to them about things. Yeah, Lyndon Johnson said to Dirksen, on the Civil Rights Bill, vote for it because it's right.
Yeah, but you have to understand, Everett Dirksen was a liberal Republican. That doesn't exist anymore. This is a party that does not have liberals or even moderates. So part of the problem is the Republican Party cannot even agree with itself of 10 or 20 years ago. So how can you get anything done? 20 years ago, the Republican Party was for the very health care bill that got passed. It was basically Bob Dole's old plan. It's not like the Democrats asked for a single payer. They certainly didn't even ask for a public option. Okay? It's a business-friendly bill. It's a big blowjob to the insurance companies and the drug companies. So the Republicans should have been for that. That's their idea of legislation, business-friendly. But they weren't. Or take global warming. You know, 20 years ago, Bush the first, acid rain, passed cap and trade. That's, again, a Republican idea, business-friendly. Somehow now it got to be global warming doesn't even exist. It's a hoax. How can you negotiate with the party that won't even agree with itself?
In the 40s, the environment was a Republican issue.
In the 20s, race was a Republican issue.
Yeah, you're right.
They were the friend of the black man.
More with Bill Maher after this. We're back with Bill Maher. I didn't know that you bought a piece of the New York Mets.
Absolutely. I'm Mr. Met, Larry.
Mr. Met. Why did you make that investment?
I think it's a great investment. And you know what? Everybody told me not to do it because the Mets were in such trouble because of the Madoff. You know, they were getting sued by
Freddie Wilpond's a dear friend, the owner of the Mets.
Yes, I've met him. I think he's a terrific
guy.
Okay.
But you invested.
They were selling. You know, it's very rare that a sports team sells off a piece of itself.
Correct.
But I read it right in the New York Times last December. It said the New York Mets are selling 40% of the team. They need to raise cash. And I said, this is a great opportunity. I mean, more than realistic, everything else I think can go to shit.
The value goes up.
Of every sports franchise.
Correct.
George Steinbrenner bought the Yankees in 1973 for $10 million, and if they were sold today, it would be at least $4 billion. And yeah, everybody told me not to do it, and then I did it anyway. And then the Dodgers sold for $2.15 billion.
Which immediately increased the value of the Mets.
Absolutely. But everyone said the highest the Dodgers would go for would not be more than $1.5 billion.
So you,
$2.15 billion.
You are a shrewd investor. You are not part of the 47%.
No, I'm not.
Yet you will.
But I came from the 47%. By the way, when you talk about the 47%, if you're talking about people who don't pay taxes, GE and 10 other giant corporations did not pay taxes in 2010 and a number of other recent years. So they're part of the freeloaders as well. GE, can you imagine paying no taxes? For God's sake, strippers pay more taxes, and they work at night in the dark and get paid in the...
Other